evening, and welcome to this week's Talking Sports with Evan. I'm Evan Watalis, and here to talk a few things that have been going on in the week of Wisconsin sports. There's been some Brewer news. There's been some unfortunate Bucks news, and obviously lots to talk about with the Packers and even with the Badgers a little bit. So, with that said, again, this is Talking Sports with Evan. You can find the show on YouTube and Facebook by searching Talking Sports with Evan, or you can go on X or Twitter or whatever name you call it and just look up at Evan with Sports. You can also listen to the podcast on Spotify as well. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, rate, whatever and let me know what you think of this show overall. Now, lots to talk about this week in Wisconsin sports that is newsworthy to me that I feel I need to give my opinion on. And I know most people could care less what I have to say or think. Well, I think the majority of people can care less what I have to say or think. But with that said, this is my show, and I am here to give my opinion on things. And anyways, Milwaukee Brewers, going to start there. A couple of things happened with the Brewers this week, the past couple weeks actually, since my last show. Last show is specifically dedicated to the Packers, as I had Dusty Everly on to talk Packers and their offense and their struggles overall. And then we also previewed the win over the Giants too. Well, the Milwaukee Brewers this week have made some news. One, Matt Arnold is the executive of the year. Deserving Matt Arnold on his executive of the year. And Pat Murphy is now a two-time manager of the year. Well deserved for those two. Because when you look at Pat Murphy, and you love him or hate him, the Brewers were projected to finish fourth in the division, I believe, in most of the places. They were supposed to win in the lower 80s, barely be a 500 baseball team. And they went on to have the best regular season record in baseball, set their franchise record in single season wins with 97. They won 100 games overall after the counting playoffs. And they outperformed all the metrics that people put on the Brewers. And I know it didn't lead to postseason success past the divisional round. They beat the Cubs in 5 games, and then they got set up against the Dodgers in the NLCS, and they lost in 4, as we all know. But I think it's fair to say that Pat Murphy he outdid everything that people thought the Brewers had. And it's easy to look back now when you see the Brewers had the best record in the regular season and say the season was a failure. But at the end of the day, nobody expected them to even finish 500, let alone make the NLCS with the best regular season record in baseball. Not a soul thought that. I thought they'd be a wild card team, and they would bow out in the wild card like we've seen. But I don't think most people thought they would be a division champion. And if somebody says, well, I knew all along they would be, they're lying to you. The Brewers outshined all of their offseason metrics. And Matt Arnold deserves a big credit to that. He takes chances on guys nobody else wants to, like Andrew Vaughn. Jake Bauers had a really good postseason for the Brewers. And he knows how to put together a team that's going to be competitive. And I know at the end of the day, we all want World Series. We want the Brewers to get to the World Series and play for the World Series. But the thing is, if you're not competitive in the regular season, if you don't make the playoffs, you don't have a chance to even think of getting that far. And by getting into the playoffs, well, you have a chance. Basically, you need to get to the playoffs first before you can win a championship. And Matt Arnold has put the Brewers in position year after year to get into the playoffs. And I know it took was very controversial comment years ago when David Stern said it when he was general manager and team president of the Brewers. He said we just trying to get as many bites of the apple as we can. And at the end of the day, that's how the Brewers got to compete. They got to compete with trying to get as many bites at the apple as they can. And I think the Brewers, there's some things the Brewers I wouldn't mind seeing them do differently, because I wouldn't mind more of a power bat in that lineup somewhere, either a third base or first base in that lineup. I think Jackson Cheerio is going to develop into a power bat, but I think they still need an infield power bat. And we saw what the lack of power can do once you reach the playoffs. So like I said, Arnold's not perfect. Murphy's not perfect. But I think together they've done a great job of keeping this Brewers team competitive, even with the loss of David Stearns, with the loss of Craig Counsell, with the trade of Corbin Burns, the Josh Hader trade. I know that was David Stearns, but still, even with all those trades, the Brewers stay competitive year after year, and tip my hats to those two executives of the year. Other things that have happened with the Brewers since I talked something other than the Packers last, you have the Brewers replaying the Braves in at the Little League World Series site. And one of the cool things baseball has started doing is you've had the Field of Dreams game, you've had a game down in I think Alabama, and you have the Williamsport game as well. And I think it's really cool, because it's, you're trying to grow the game of baseball at the end of the day. And that's a great way to grow the game of baseball. You put it at Williamsburg, Pennsylvania, the home of the Little League World Series, and you make it part of the Little League World Series, and you have the Brewers and the Braves playing there. And like I said, I think it's great for baseball. It's great PR. It's great for the kids. It's great for those watching the game. And I'm excited to see that the Brewers were chosen to represent one half of the teams that are there, and the Brewers are starting to get some recognition at the bigger scale. And I always see the local fans very critical all the time of some of the decisions that Murphy makes or Matt Arnold makes. And the end of the day, when you look at the Brewers from a national perspective, there's a lot of respect for the Brewers, and those two in particular, on how they've built this team to compete year after year. And then finally, with the Milwaukee Brewers, Big Wood, Brandon Woodworth, he initially opted out of his mutual option with the team. The Brewers gave him a qualifying offer, and he accepted the qualifying offer, which for some is a surprise. But for me, not really. And it's not a surprise for a couple reasons. One, Woody loves Milwaukee. He is very fortunate and very happy and very thankful for everything the Brewers have given him thus far. The Brewers took a chance on him when he's rehabbing that shoulder. They signed him to a 2-year contract or 3-year contract. I think, 3-year contract. And they basically paid him to not pitch for an entire year. And now, obviously, this past year, he was in and out of the lineup, more out than in, and then ended up not pitching in the postseason. But the shoulder's not the issue. It was another issue, nothing to do with the shoulder. But now Woody gets to have as we like to call it, a normal offseason. And he gets to have a normal offseason where he can recover, rehab, and work towards getting back on the pitcher's mound just like you would any other offseason. I think that's important. The other reason Woody takes a qualifying offer, because let's be honest, it's very unlikely we're going to have a baseball season in 2027. Or if we have a baseball season, it's going to be a shortened season, or the season's not going to start on time due to a labor issue coming up, as this is the last year of the current collective bargaining agreement with baseball, and it's looking very likely that it's probably going to be a work stoppage. And you basically sign a 1-year deal. Get the 20-something million dollars now, and then instead of having to set out a year or two waiting for this work stoppage to end. And I don't think it'll be like the strike was back in the 90s, but it might be a while before we get baseball. And at least he has some security with this season with the Brewers with that 20-something million. It's a smart move by Woody, smart move by the Brewers for that. Switching gears to the Milwaukee Bucks. Again, this is Talking Sports with Evan. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. Sorry about that. And Giannis is out for a couple weeks at maximum. 1 to 2 weeks, I think I saw, with a groin injury. And the Bucks avoided disaster of a more long-term injury, and they're not off to a great start today as they're down 11-4 against the Philadelphia 76ers. And at this point, the Bucks just need to kind of tread water until Giannis comes back. And they're a young team that was working on getting to learn and getting to know one another and how to play with Giannis. And now, unfortunately, Giannis isn't in the picture for a couple weeks. And it's going to be, like I said, up to the Bucks to continue to tread water as we wait for Giannis to return. And it's not the end of the world. The Bucks, with Giannis, are still a playoff team. Obviously, without him, they're not. But with him, they're still a playoff team. Are they a contender in the Eastern Conference? Early returns are no. But the Bucks are a young team, getting comfortable playing with one another. And I think this is a team, like, by the end of the year, could be a very talented team if guys stay healthy. And Giannis being the most important piece. Kevin Porter Jr. should hopefully be back in the next couple weeks as well. And then we can start seeing the Bucks lineup that we were hoping to see, that we saw a small glimpse up on opening night. But as I said, the Bucks are a young team. They're going to have to learn to play without him. And it might not be the worst thing in the world. I know we would prefer Giannis not be out for a couple weeks, but this is going to give the Bucks an opportunity to learn who can step up in Giannis' absence. Is it Ryan Rollins? Is it Gary Trent Jr.? Is it Kyle Kuzma? Is it a combination of all the above? Is it AJ Green? Is it somebody we haven't even said yet? Miles Turner? And the thing is, Miles Turner has not had the impact that we all thought he was going to have when the Bucks signed him. And maybe this is an opportunity for Miles Turner to step up and kind of take over the scoring a little bit while Giannis is out. And I know that's not necessarily what he does best, but maybe, like I said, maybe Miles Turner can take over some of that scoring punch without Giannis. Maybe he can step his game up, get more comfortable playing with the Bucks, knowing that he doesn't have probably one of the best scorers in basketball this season alongside him, and maybe he can do more around the hoop. So, moving on to Packer news. This is Talking Sports with Evan. I'm Evan Witalis. You can find the show on Spotify, Talking Sports with Evan. Also on X at Evan with Sports. On YouTube and Facebook, Talking Sports with Evan. And Packers beat the Giants. The Packers got the victory over the Giants, and 27-20. With 5 of the Packers' 6 wins, they've scored exactly 27 points, which is kind of weird stat. I don't know when the last time that happened was, but at the end of the day, the Packers got the victory, and that is what ultimately matters. And I got to tip my hat in this game to Jordan Love. If you strictly look at the box score, you're going to see his numbers. We had 11 incompletions, and I believe under 200 yards passing and 2 passing touchdowns. If you just look at the box score, it's not very overwhelming. But if you analyze the game, watch the game, break the game down, you're going to see that there was like 6 drops by Packer wide receivers. and tight ends, 6 total drops. I don't know how many yards that potentially was, but that's probably another 150 to 200 yards passing with some of those catches. And I'm not even talking about potential yards after the catch. That's a good chunk of yards. And that's a completion percentage that's now going to be in the 70% rather than the lower 50s. If all those 6 drops were actually caught, or even if half of them were caught, you're looking at a totally different number. Jordan Love played an excellent game in New York against the Giants. If you pay attention to Pro Football Focus, he had a 93 grade. And it's funny. When you have the Eagles game happen, or there's another game that they think they won where all the talk on the talking head shows where we can't trust Jordan Love, they're all yak, 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 yak. Jordan Love plays an outstanding game against the Giants, and nobody nationally says a word. Nobody's giving him his flowers. Nobody's giving him his props. Jordan Love played outstanding against the Giants. He lost Josh Jacobs early in the game, and he continued to play well. He had an offensive line that gives up a ton of pressures, especially up the middle, which it was improved this week. He continued to get the job done. He has wide receivers dropping the football left and right. He continues to get the job done. And his pass to Savion Williams on 3rd down was a great throw. And his touchdown pass to Christian Watson in the corner in the end zone for the game-winning score was an incredible ball that he put it. Only Christian Watson could get it and then come down with it. Jordan Love's a good quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. I don't know what else people need to see. He is a very good quarterback. Does he make some throws that make you want to punch a wall sometimes? Yes. But he only has 3 interceptions right now. Last year at this time, he had 10 or 11. He's got 3. Jordan Love has done a good job protecting the football, getting it to the open man, even with play calling that's been a huge struggle at times. Even with you name it, he's continued to play very good football. And I'm excited to see what happens Sunday against the Minnesota Vikings. And the Minnesota Vikings, very good defense. It's going to be a great test for Jordan Love and a good test for Matt LaFleur, especially without potentially Josh Jacobs. Jacobs thinks if he misses any time, it'll only be one game that he misses. With a knee contusion, we definitely found out just how hard that field was at MetLife Stadium when he went down with a knee contusion. And you saw rookie defensive lineman Brinston talking about how it's one of the hardest surfaces he's played on. So it was like playing on concrete. We see why he got the knee contusion. But this is going to be a good test for Jordan Love against the defense of the Vikings that's very aggressive. They throw a bunch of different things at you, a bunch of different coverages, a bunch of different blitzes, and it's going to be interesting to see how the Packers offense responds and if Jordan Love continues his strong play. And I'm confident in the Packers against the Vikings for a couple reasons. One, J.J. McCarthy is not a very impressive quarterback. He could make some throws here and there, but overall, he's not an impressive quarterback. All we hear about J.J. McCarthy is he's relearning how to play quarterback. He's learning how to play quarterback at the NFL level. They're rewiring him, basically changing whatever he was taught at Michigan on how to be a quarterback on the fly at the NFL level. He's not very good, especially not yet. Can he develop into a good quarterback? Maybe, but he's not a good quarterback right now. He's not. And I think there's going to be interceptions to have. And the Packers dropped 4 or 5 interceptions against the New York Football Giants. Now, one of them would have been a tough interception with Xavier McKinney looking like he got a hand on it on a deep throw to Keyshawn Nixon. But if the Packers the Packers are going to get maybe not that blatant of throws that they got from Jameis Winston, but they're going to get balls that they should be able to come up with, and they can really flip the game. Yeah, the Packers only beat the Giants by 7, but honestly, it should have been Packers should have had 30 to 40 points easily in this game, and the Giants should have had less than 20 because the Giants ended up scoring 2 of their touchdowns after Packers dropped interceptions. I think the Packers defense can come up with some interceptions in this game. I like Micah Parsons, and he has been a game wrecker. And I excited to hopefully see the Packers defense continue to show that they can be an elite unit. Biggest concern I have with the Packers defensively is trying to stop the run. They struggled against Carolina trying to stop the run. They struggled with the Giants trying to stop the run. They did a good job stopping the run against the Eagles. But they've been struggling trying to stop the run recently. And it's going to be important for your defensive linemen, your defensive tackles to start playing better. Your Devontae Wyatt, who has pretty much disappeared since coming back from injury. It's almost like he's not even back yet from injury. Brinson, Stackhouse, the other defensive linemen, defensive tackles they have, Wooden, Brooks, they got to play better. They got to play better at the point of attack, and they got to keep the Vikings offensive linemen off the linebackers so the Packers linebackers can flow to the football. Concerning is Quay Walker has not practiced the last 2 days after having a neck stinger. We saw a stinger pretty much end A.J. Dillon's career in Green Bay. Now he's with the Eagles. We saw that happen last year in preseason when A.J. Dillon suffered a neck stinger and he never played another down in Green Bay. Got put on IR, and his Packer career is over. I don't think Quay Walker's is quite to that point, but it is very concerning when you hear a neck stinger keeping a guy out. Other concern is the Packers' injury report looks like a CVS receipt. 16 players, I believe, are currently on the injury report with a number of guys not practicing. Lucas Van Ness is still, I think, limited. There's just a lot of guys not practicing or limited practices at this point, which is concerning. And then the whole kicking situation is still a concern. It looked like they had the kicking situation figured out, and then you have McManus get hurt, and you think the teacher can do the job, and then he has a rough showing in New York at MetLife Stadium, which I don't blame him. That was a very tough conditions to kick in. But I think those are going to be my biggest problems with Green Bay on Sunday. Is the kicking game still a problem? And if Quay Walker can't play, McDuffie didn't do very well in the middle. When McDuffie got put in the middle to replace Quay Walker, it was not pretty. So maybe we see more Hopper instead in the middle, and you keep McDuffie on the outside. That's personally what I would do, but maybe that's what we see. Going back to the Packers and the Giants game, some disappointing things from that game to bring up, too, that I haven't yet, is Luke Musgrave. Luke Musgrave, rookie year, showed flashes. He showed flashes that he could be a field-tilting type tight end. He's athletic, he's tough to cover, and he's a matchup nightmare for opposing defenses. He lacerates his kidney his rookie year, and since then, he has not really shown much. He missed all of last year to an ankle injury, and this season, Musgrave hasn't been pretty. And the problem is when you have him on the field, it's pretty easy to tell that the Packers are going to be throwing the football, because especially in a game like Sunday when you have to have some extra protection to protect your quarterback, you can't afford to have Musgrave out there. And like I said, when the Packers do put Musgrave out there, that's going to be a tip or a tell that the Packers are going to be throwing the football, because Musgrave is not a good blocker. And he's been extremely disappointing. One of the things I hope the Packers do Sunday is they continue to get Christian Watson the football more. You saw against the Giants that Christian Watson is and can be that wide receiver one. And I know the Packers don't typically have a wide receiver one or whatever, But I think in this situation with Tucker Kraft out with a torn ACL, Jaden Reed still out, coming back from a collarbone and foot injury, I think you got to make Christian Watson that number one target for you. Romeo Dobbs has have the case of the drops lately. I think Christian Watson has to be where you get the football to. And I know the Packers' just philosophy is just throw to the open man, but I think we got to develop that connection even more between Jordan Love and Christian Watson. And I think we got to see Matthew Golden a little bit more. More Golden, more Watson, more Wicks, and I'm sorry, Romeo, but less Romeo, less Heath. That's what I think we need to see more of on the field more consistently. When Heath's on the field, you know they're running the football. Christian Watson's a good blocker. I know Golden's not a great blocker, but the Packers' offense has too many tells right now, and I think that's one of the things they need to figure out and fix. A few things that were said in practice this week that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, or really one thing that rubbed me the wrong way. Matt LaFleur talking about Rashawn Gary, who Rashawn Gary didn't have very many snaps on Sunday. Micah Parsons was like 82% of the snaps played. Rashawn Gary significantly less. And Matt LaFleur's answer really rubbed me the wrong way on that. Rashawn Gary's never been a ton of reps guy. And then he talked about how Ingambare is earning more reps. And I'm not upset about Kiki Ingambare earning more reps. I think it's great that we're playing guys based off them earning things rather than just, hey, we pay this guy a lot of money, he's got to go out there and play. That's good. But the reason why Rashawn Gary has never been a full-time player in Green Bay is because you don't use him as one. You drafted him 13th overall. You paid him like a number one pass rusher, but you only play him about half the snaps. I don't know if it's conditioning. I don't know if what it is, but it is very concerning that we're not having Rashawn Gary on the field as much as we should. He does do good against the run. I'll give him credit on that. But you don't pay a guy the money Rashawn Gary is getting paid to be a run stopper first. You signed him to that extension to be a game wrecker, and I get he's never really put together a full season of being a game wrecker. He's had flashes where he's shown that he can take over a game, but it's not consistent enough. And I think that part of that is the Packers' fault because they keep rotating him in and out. He can't get the conditioning right. He can't get the conditioning he needs to play 80% of the downs because you keep rotating him in and out. And I guess I question what are they going to do when Lucas Van Ness does return from his injury. You're already playing him significantly less reps than Micah Parsons. Is he going to lose reps even more? Because you have Kiki Ngambare, you have Lucas Van Ness, you got Rashawn Gary, you have Sorrell. Like, does that mean he's going to lose even more reps? And, I hope Halfley can figure out how to get them all involved more frequently. But I think Rashawn Gary, Micah Parsons should be leading the way with reps played, and then you fill everybody else in along the way. So that'll do it for tonight's Talking Sports with Evan. I think the Packers will get the victory over the Vikings this week by 2 scores. I think the Badgers are going to lose to Illinois. They already lost to Indiana. I think they're going to lose to Illinois by 2 scores. And as I said, I hope the Bucks can just kind of tread water until Giannis can return. Again, this has been Talking Sports with Evan. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for being part of the show. And the podcast will be available on Spotify very soon. Have a good rest of your night and enjoy your weekend. Good night, everybody.